Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and just, wandering into your kitchen. You turn on the tap and water flows out. Perfectly clear.
Right, just like it does every single day.
Exactly. You fill up your glass, take a drink, and you don't even think twice about it. I mean, you just instinctively trust the system.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You assume that somewhere out there, some massive municipal plan is pulling water from a reservoir and cleaning it.
Yeah, filtering out all the toxins and pumping it right to your house.
Yeah.
You aren't sitting there thinking about the chemical engineers or, the billions of dollars in concrete piping.
Or the energy grid running the whole thing. You just expect the water to be there. It's the ultimate invisible utility.
It really is. And the only time we ever actually think about that treatment plant is if the tap runs dry.
Or worse, if the water suddenly comes out brown.
Right, exactly. Now, I want you, the listener, to apply that exact same expectation to the infrastructure of human knowledge, specifically the daily news.
Oh, that's a really interesting way to frame it.
Think about your own routine. You probably pull out your phone before you even get out of bed, right? You check a few headlines, maybe scroll through a feed.
You might listen to a quick audio update on your commute to work.
Exactly. You are turning on that informational tap, millions of times a day. Collectively, we are consuming more news and data than any generation in human history.
We are essentially drinking an entire ocean of water every single day.
Yes. But here's the crazy part. If you look upstream at the treatment plants, the journalistic institutions that are supposed to filter and verify that information, they're going bankrupt.
Yeah, they are structurally collapsing. They're actively burning to the ground right now.
And all the while, they are desperately trying to sell you the rusted pipes they're trapped inside of. It's a complete paradox.
It really makes no sense on the surface. High demand usually means a booming business, but not here.
Right. And that is exactly the phenomenon we are tearing apart today on this deep dive. Welcome, everyone. We are exploring a stack of just incredibly insightful essays today.
Yeah, these were published on April 19th, 2026 by a platform known as Netizen.
And they go incredibly deep. We're talking about the economics, the psychology, and honestly, the absolute necessary future of how we consume information.
And we should set the stakes right up front for the listener. This isn't just some inside baseball complaint about media companies losing money.
No, not at all. This is a civilizational vulnerability. We're going to unpack why the news industry is dying despite infinite demand.
And how the whole illusion of the free internet fundamentally broke the economics of truth.
Yes, and most importantly, how a radical reimagining of the news might be the only way out. We want to talk about transforming news from this chaotic, anxiety-inducing fire hose.
Which is how it feels right now, honestly.
Totally. Transforming it into a structured engine for lifelong personal education, especially for you, the learner listening to this.
Because look, if you don't fix the underlying blueprint of how truth is funded and distributed, it really doesn't matter how many great journalists you hire. The system will just fail.
Right. So we have to start by looking at the basic, brutal economics of supply and demand. Because, like you said, on the surface, they make zero sense.
None at all. If you were like an alien observing Earth right now, you'd look at the news market and think it was the greatest boom industry in the galaxy.
Oh, for sure. It is the single most consumed product online. We're consuming it everywhere. X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, Telegram.
Newsletters, deep dives, you name it, the volume is staggering.
And it used to be a 24-hour news cycle, right?
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
it resets every 24 seconds.
Which creates this fascinating but also terrifying psychological state. Just think about the mental load for a second.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. A modern internet user is essentially processing the volume of information that, used to be reserved for a frantic newsroom intern during a global crisis.
Yes, you're getting hit with 10,000 headlines. Global tragedies, market fluctuations, political scandals, and that's all before lunch.
Right. And from a traditional business perspective, if people are consuming that much of your product, you should be swimming in money.
Exactly. The 20th century economic rule was just straightforward. Higher volume equals higher profit. If you sell cars and suddenly people want to drive 3 times as much, you get rich.
But news isn't a car. It's not a physical, scarce resource.
Yeah. And that's the core illusion we all fell for, isn't it? Let's talk about that physical scarcity.
Yeah, let's go back, say, 30 or 40 years. Why was a local newspaper incredibly profitable?
Was it because the journalism was just undeniably amazing?
Not necessarily. I mean, it was profitable because the newspaper owned the local delivery trucks. They owned the massive printing press downtown.
Ah, so they had a geographic monopoly on distribution.
Exactly. If a local grocery store wanted to tell the town that ground beef was on sale, they had no choice. They had to pay the newspaper to put a flyer in the Sunday edition.
They basically owned the toll booth to the entire town's attention.
That's a great way to put it. It was an economy of scarcity. But then the internet comes along. And it didn't just add a new delivery truck to the town.
It eradicated the concept of a delivery truck altogether.
Precisely. It turned news from this packaged, scarce physical product into an infinite flow of water.
And when supply becomes infinite, when anyone can publish literally anything at zero marginal cost,
Yeah.
the economics get weird.
Very weird. Attention starts to behave exactly like a collapsing currency.
Wait, okay, unpack that mechanism for me. How does attention behave like a collapsing currency?
Well, think about inflation. If a central bank suddenly, I don't know, prints $1 trillion and drops it from helicopters, the value of a single dollar plummets.
Right, because there's just so many of them flooding the market.
Exactly. The internet effectively printed an infinite supply of content. So the value of a single article or a single moment of readers' attention plummeted to near zero.
Wow. And that fundamentally rewired how we as consumers actually think about paying for things.
Oh,
I mean, I remember when paying for a magazine or a newspaper subscription was just a standard household utility bill. It was like paying for electricity.
right. It was just in the budget.
But the moment the internet happened, that mindset just evaporated. We went from, I need to budget for my daily news, to, why on earth is this article asking me for money?
I can just get this somewhere else for free.
Exactly. But here is the fatal disconnect the Netizen essays point out.
Yeah.
The consumer decided the water should be free, but the physical reality of the water treatment plant didn't change at all.
No, it didn't. The cost structure of serious verified journalism is still massive. It's not just some teenager in a room with a laptop.
Right. Serious reporting requires real infrastructure. Foreign bureaus, war correspondents with hostile environment training, layers and layers of experienced editors.
Fact checkers. And let's not forget incredibly expensive legal counsel to review investigations so you don't get sued into oblivion by some billionaire.
Exactly. A functioning newsroom has the overhead of a serious industrial operation.
So we basically walked up to the water company and said, hey, we've decided water is magically free now, so we're not paying our bills anymore.
But also, if there's a single drop of arsenic in my tap water, I'm going to destroy your reputation on social media.
That is the exact trap. You strip them of their revenue, but you demand perfect execution. They lost their pricing power.
Pricing power. Define that in this context.
In economics, pricing power is a company's ability to raise prices without reducing demand.
Right, like how Apple can charge more for a phone and people still buy it.
Exactly. But the internet destroyed the media's pricing power because there is always a free, lower quality substitute just one click away.
And when a high overhead business loses its pricing power, structural collapse isn't just a possibility, it's a mathematical certainty.
It really is. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, but let me push back on this because there's a massive elephant in the room here. You're saying they lost their revenue, but for the last 2 decades, the tech industry told us we didn't need consumer revenue.
Ah, yes. The great promise.
Right. We were told that the digital advertising model was the savior of the free internet. We get the news for free, the brands pay for the ads, the publishers make money, and everybody wins.
Yeah, well, the digital ad model was never a savior. The essays describe it as a ventilator.
A ventilator. That's dark.
And worse, a ventilator with incredibly loose wiring running on an unstable power grid. It kept the vital organs of journalism technically pumping, but it degraded the body in the process.
Okay, we really need to dissect the mechanics of why the ad model failed so spectacularly. Because the sources say it's built on 3 fatal flaws. Let's hear them. Because honestly, from a user perspective, ads are annoying, sure, but they don't seem like a civilizational threat.
They are, though. The first fatal flaw is a pure business mechanism. The tech platforms ate the ecosystem.
How so?
Well, when a news organization started publishing online, they thought they were just going to sell ads against their articles, just like they did in the print newspaper.
Makes sense. Sell a banner ad instead of a page spread.
Right. But Google and Facebook didn't just compete with them for ad space. They built algorithmic infrastructure that swallowed the entire market.
But wait, how exactly? Because the platforms aren't the ones out there writing the articles about city council meetings or global conflict.
No, they aren't. But they control the pathways to those articles. Think about programmatic advertising.
Okay, walk me through that.
In the old days, a publisher had an ad sales team. They'd call up Ford Motor Company and say, hey, buy a full page in our auto section this Sunday.
A direct transaction.
Exactly. Today, ad buying happens in milliseconds via algorithms. Because Google and Meta track user behavior across the entire internet, they can offer Ford a much better deal.
I see where this is going.
They tell Ford, look, don't bother buying expensive space on the New York Times homepage. We know exactly who is actively looking to buy a truck, and we will serve them your ad anywhere they go on the internet for pennies.
Oh, wow. So the publisher's doing the incredibly expensive, high-risk work of reporting the news, investigating corruption, and building an audience.
Yes.
But the tech platform is the one actually extracting the profit from that audience's attention.
Exactly. The essays use a great metaphor. Publishers were reduced to tenant farmers on land owned by algorithms.
Tent farmers. That is brutal. So the newsrooms produced the crop, but the tech platforms owned the tractors, the roads, and the markets.
Yep. And the profit margins for the actual creators of the truth just completely evaporated.
Which inevitably triggers the second fatal flaw. If you are a publisher and you are suddenly making pennies on the dollar compared to what you used to make, what's your only option?
You have to increase the sheer volume of pennies. You have to flood the zone.
And that turns the digital ad model into a direct tax on the user experience.
A huge tax. It ruins the product.
A tax on the user experience. That is just a perfect way to describe the absolute misery of reading an article on a local news website today.
Oh, it's unbearable.
It really is.
Okay.
You click a link because, say, you want to know if a hurricane is going to hit your town.
Yeah.
And before you can even read the first sentence, boom, you are hit with a giant cookie consent pop-up.
Which takes up the whole screen.
Right. So you frantically close that, and then an autoplay video starts screaming at the bottom of your screen about insurance. You scroll down, and a sticky banner ad blocks a third of the text.
And then you accidentally click an invisible overlay.
Yes. And suddenly you're redirected to a completely different site selling, like, dietary supplements or something.
You are treated like a hostage in a casino hallway.
A hostage in a casino hallway. That's exactly how it feels. The architecture of the website is no longer designed to deliver information.
No, it's designed to trap your attention and force you to accidentally interact with an ad unit.
It's actively hostile. You don't feel like a citizen trying to educate yourself about the world. You feel like prey.
And look at the fallout. The publisher's resentful because they're still broke. The user is furious because the site is basically unusable.
And frankly, the advertisers are getting terrible return on investment anyway because everyone has ad blockers now. Or we just mentally ignore the banners.
Right. The only people winning are the ad tech middlemen taking a tiny cut of every single millisecond transaction.
It's a broken loop. Which leads us to the third and honestly the absolute most dangerous flaw, the toxic incentive structure.
This is where it gets really dark. The ad tech model literally rewired the soul of journalism.
How? Explain that rewiring process.
Well, think about it. If your revenue, your literal survival, depends entirely on generating maximum page views, maximum clicks, and maximum time on site, what kind of product do you start making?
You stop making news and you start manufacturing dopamine.
Exactly. You manufacture outrage. You write headlines that intentionally withhold context just to force a click.
Clickbait.
Pure clickbait. You take a mundane quote from a politician and frame it as this catastrophic, world-ending scandal.
Or you stretch a simple factual update into a sprawling, emotionally manipulative narrative just to keep the reader scrolling past more ad units.
Right. Let's really lean into the mechanics of that for a second.
Yep.
A young journalist goes to school, right? They learn how to objectively report facts.
They want to do good work. They want to hold power accountable.
Exactly. But suddenly they get a job and they are thrown into a newsroom where their daily performance is judged by a giant dashboard showing real-time traffic.
Oh man, that dashboard.
Yeah. They aren't competing with other journalists to find the most accurate truth anymore. They are competing in the exact same algorithmic feed as conspiracy theorists, viral dance videos, and celebrity gossip.
They are forced to fight an unwinnable war for attention.
And you cannot win an attention war with nuance. Nuance is boring.
Complexity doesn't go viral.
No, it doesn't. Rage goes viral. Fear goes viral. Disgust goes viral.
So the economic model of the ventilator actually poisoned the patient. It didn't just fund the news. It changed what the news was.
It's a moral and psychological collapse. And the thing is, readers aren't foolish.
No, they're not.
They might not understand the intricacies of programmatic ad bidding, but they can intuitively sense when they're being manipulated. They feel that the underlying intent of an article isn't to inform them anymore, but to harvest their emotional reaction.
And when that trust shatters, the entire relationship breaks down. I mean, you cannot build a sustainable business when your core audience actively resents you.
You really can.
Okay, so the ad model became this toxic casino. Publishers realized this, right? They saw the writing on the wall, and over the last decade, we saw a massive pivot.
The pivot to subscriptions.
Yes. Everyone decided, okay, we're going to build a paywall. We are going to ask the readers to fund the water treatment plant directly.
Support real journalism, right? That became the slogan everywhere.
Right, $15 a month to keep democracy alive. And on the surface, that seems like the ethical, rational solution.
It seems highly rational if you're sitting inside the boardroom of a global legacy newspaper. But when you zoom out to a societal level, this universal pivot to paywalls introduced a completely new, arguably much more dangerous crisis.
And the Netizen essays call this information inequality. Let's dig into how a paywall actually functions in the real world, because it's not just a harmless business decision.
Not at all.
You are essentially taking the best, most heavily researched, verified, and legally vetted journalism, the literal oxygen of a functioning democracy, and you are locking it behind a financial gate.
You turn truth into a luxury good.
Exactly, a luxury good. And think about the practical consequence of that. Who is actually paying $30 a month for a premium financial newspaper, or $15 for a major national daily?
It's lawyers, academics, corporate executives, politicians.
Right, people who already have a high degree of education and disposable income. So the people who are already informed are paying to become slightly more informed.
While the people who desperately need reliable, structured information to navigate their daily lives, young students, working-class families living paycheck to paycheck, people in developing economies, they are completely locked out.
It's devastating. They click a link to read an investigation into, I don't know, why their rent is doubling, and they hit a hard stop. Subscribe now to read the rest of this story.
But their desire to understand the world didn't just disappear because they hit a paywall. They still want to know why their rent is doubling.
So what do?
They go back to the algorithmic feed.
And what is waiting for them in the feed?
The garbage. Because the conspiracy theories, the hyper-partisan rage bait, the foreign propaganda campaigns, the influencers screaming about hidden agendas, that stuff is never behind a paywall.
Never.
That stuff is fundamentally designed to be viral and entirely free.
I really want to make sure everyone listening internalizes this mechanism. We have inadvertently engineered a society where the truth costs money, but the lies are free.
It's a terrifying realization when you put it like that.
The highest quality information requires a credit card, but the absolute worst, most radicalizing disinformation is aggressively shoved into your brain at zero cost.
We have built a gated community for reality.
A gated community for reality. Wow.
And what's crucial to understand about the business of paywalls is that they don't actually scale to solve the industry's problem anyway.
Why not?
Because paywalls are a luxury brand strategy. It works for a paper like the New York Times because they are a global lifestyle brand.
Right, they offer cooking apps, word games, product reviews. It's a whole package.
Exactly. But if you are a mid-sized regional paper in Ohio trying to cover local corruption, a paywall will destroy you.
Wait, why? Why can't the Ohio paper just charge like $5 a month to their local readers?
Because the internet has trained consumers to expect infinite substitutes. If that Ohio paper publishes an incredible, deeply reported investigation into a local chemical spill and puts it behind a paywall,
What happens?
a local radio station or some blogger will just read the article, summarize the core facts in 3 paragraphs, and publish it for free 5 minutes later.
Oh, of course.
The original paper did all the expensive investigative work, but the free aggregator gets all the traffic and the attention.
Wow. So they're completely hopelessly tracked.
Totally trapped.
If they use ads, they destroy the product and alienate the reader. If they use paywalls, they exclude 90% of the public and get their work cannibalized anyway.
It really is like they're trapped in a burning building arguing over the price of a bottle of water.
And this is where the conversation has to pivot from business mechanics to civilizational survival. Because what happens to a society, to a democracy, when the shared baseline of facts is locked away?
And the masses are left breathing the exhaust fumes of algorithms. Nature abhors a vacuum.
Right. When a trusted, verified newsroom dies or walls itself off, the void doesn't stay empty. It is instantly filled by bad actors who do not have the same ethical constraints.
You cannot run a complex global society if half the population believes the sky is blue and the other half is being radicalized by a free YouTube video telling them the sky is a government projection.
You just can't. Okay, so the funding mechanisms are completely broken. The pipes are rusting. But to truly fix this, the essays argue we can't just tinker with the monetization right.
Right. We have to look at the actual manufacturing process. How is the water being treated in the first place?
Yes. Why is the physical, structural concept of a newsroom obsolete?
Because if you walk into almost any major media organization today, beneath all the shiny digital screens and the Slack channels, they're still basically running an industrial workflow designed in 1995, or frankly, 1955.
Let's explore that workflow. What does the 1995 factory actually look like?
It is entirely linear and incredibly slow. Think about it. An event happens in the real world. An editor assigns a reporter to it.
Okay, step one.
Step 2, the reporter goes out, makes phone calls, gathers quotes, and types up an 800-word narrative.
Step 3.
They hand it to a copy editor who checks for typos. Then they hand it to a publisher who hits post. And then a completely separate silo team tries to figure out how to slap an ad on it.
It's an assembly line.
Yes, it is a factory producing hand-built artisanal cars.
But hold on, let me play devil's advocate here. Isn't journalism supposed to be artisanal? I mean, we want careful, deliberate reporting. We want human beings verifying facts step by step. Isn't that linear process a feature, not a bug?
It's a feature if you are writing a deep 10,000-word magazine profile over 6 months.
Fair enough.
But it is a catastrophic bug when you are trying to cover the fire hose of modern global reality. A hand-built car factory is structurally incapable of scaling to a world that demands instant, customized, multimodal transportation for billions of people simultaneously.
Because the audience expectations have completely mutated since 1995.
Completely. Today's consumer doesn't just want an 800-word summary of a congressional hearing published 12 hours after it ended.
No, I want to watch it live on my phone while someone explains what it means.
Exactly. They expect a live video feed, real-time audio analysis, interactive charts showing historical voting records, and a transcript translated into 3 different languages instantly.
And the old linear factory simply cannot output that product.
It can't. But there is a much deeper issue here, a brutal reality that legacy media just refuses to accept.
Which is?
The scarcity of raw reporting has vanished.
The text mentions this concept of infinite reporters. Let's dive into that.
Think about 1990. If a building caught fire in downtown Chicago, the only way the public knew about it was if the local newspaper had the resources to dispatch a professional reporter with a notepad and a photographer with a camera to the scene.
Right. The newspaper monopolized the gathering of facts.
The scarcity was the physical observation itself.
Precisely. But today...
Today, social media has turned every single human being with a smartphone into a field correspondent.
It's true. If a building catches fire today, there are instantly 200 witnesses live streaming it in 4K resolution from multiple angles before the fire trucks even arrive.
There are drone pilots overhead. People are uploading the city's architectural blueprints to Reddit to see where the fire escapes are. Citizens are monitoring police scanner frequencies.
We do not have a scarcity of raw reporting anymore. We have an absolute avalanche of it.
The world is filled with billions of raw bricks. Every tweet, every leaked document, every iPhone video is a brick.
But we've fired all the architects.
That is the perfect analogy. We have infinite bricks, but nobody knows how to build a house.
And yet, the legacy newsroom is still obsessed with trying to be the one gathering the bricks.
Right. They're still trying to send their one reporter to the fire to write down what happened, but the public doesn't need more bricks. The scarcity today isn't information.
What is it then?
The scarcity is synthesis. The scarcity is credibility, context, and meaning.
We are drowning in updates, but starving for meaning. I think everyone listening knows exactly what that feels like.
Oh, I feel it every day.
You open an app, and you see a trending topic about, say, a collapse in a foreign bond market. You see 50 different people screaming hot takes about it. You see out-of-context charts. You see political dunking.
But you possess all the raw data points without having absolutely any idea what it actually means for your 401k or your life tomorrow.
Exactly. And this structural deficit, this lack of synthesis, is the exact psychological mechanism that explains the explosion of conspiracy theories.
Oh, this part of the essays is brilliant. Let's break down the mechanics of a conspiracy theory in this environment.
Yeah, please do. How does a lack of synthesis create conspiracies?
The human brain cannot tolerate prolonged cognitive dissonance or chaotic information. It is biologically wired to seek patterns.
It wants a story.
Right. So when you dump a million raw, disconnected bricks of information onto a population, they feel anxious and vulnerable. A conspiracy theory is highly successful because it acts as a synthetic architect.
Interesting. So it takes all those random bricks, a weird quote from a politician, a strange patent filing, a fuzzy video, and it builds a house.
Exactly. Even if the house is structurally insane, even if the blueprint is completely fictional,
Doesn't matter if it's fictional because it feels coherent.
yes, it gives the anxious brain a narrative structure. It provides a simple villain and a clear storyline. It says, here is how all these confusing things connect.
Meanwhile, real journalism is fragmented. One publication has a piece of the story, but it's behind a paywall. Another publication has a confusing, jargon-heavy op-ed.
Real truth loses in the modern ecosystem, not because people are inherently stupid, but because truth is too complex to package, and the 1995 newsroom factory isn't built to synthesize it effectively.
This brings us to what I think is the most radical, paradigm-shifting insight in this entire stack of sources. If the old model was just about printing updates, and the new world requires synthesis and meaning, we have to talk about the artificial divorce.
Yes, the false separation of news and education.
Let's really unpack this,
Don't
because
like
this
that.
challenges everything we believe about how we learn.
The argument is that we have built our entire modern knowledge economy on a deeply flawed artificial binary. On one side, we have education.
Right, and we treat education as structured, formal, credentialed, and deeply serious. It happens in schools with syllabi and tests.
And on the other side, we have news. And we treat news as chaotic, disposable, emotional, and transient.
It's just stuff that happens.
Exactly. It is a hangover from the industrial age. The 20th century conditioned us to view life in two distinct phases. Phase one is the learning phase.
That's when you're a kid. You go to primary school, maybe you go to a university, you sit in lectures, you memorize the curriculum.
Then you get a piece of paper, you graduate, and you enter phase two, the execution phase. You just go to work and live your life, assuming the knowledge you gain in phase one will carry you through to retirement.
But anyone living in the real world today knows that model is completely dead.
Dead and buried. The world changes far too fast.
I mean, a 4-year college degree in computer science is practically outdated before the ink on the diploma even dries.
Yeah.
A new generative AI model drops on a Tuesday, and entire creative industries are fundamentally rewired by Thursday.
You cannot front-load your education anymore. It's impossible.
So what's the alternative?
The 21st century model cannot be learn first, then live. It has to be live first, then learn continuously.
Lifelong learning.
Yes, but lifelong learning isn't just some corporate buzzword you put on your LinkedIn profile. It is a mandatory biological survival trait in an era of exponential change.
But here's the critical question. What is the actual raw material for that lifelong learning? It's not sitting in a university lecture hall every morning.
No, it's the news. News is the daily curriculum of the adult world. It is the operating system update for civilization.
That makes so much sense. If you are reading about inflation rates or supply chain bottlenecks, you are literally learning macroeconomics.
If you are reading about a Supreme Court ruling on regulatory power, you are taking a master class in constitutional law.
If you're reading about semiconductor manufacturing in Taiwan, you're learning geopolitics and technology.
And this is the catastrophic failure of the current system because the news industry does not view itself as an educational institution. It provides absolutely no curriculum.
No scaffolding, no guidance.
None.
Yeah.
It just blasts these highly complex events at you with zero context. And when you blast information at a human mind without structure, the brain interprets it as chaos.
Information without structure produces confusion, not wisdom.
And when the brain is confused, it gets scared.
Yes. The psychological toll of this is immense. Just think about the cadence of a modern news feed. A breaking headline about a war. Scroll. A shocking image of a natural disaster. Scroll. A rushed, screaming argument about a political scandal. Scroll.
It is designed purely for urgency and emotional reaction, not for understanding. It delivers the sensation of danger without providing the cognitive tools to process or mitigate that danger.
It creates cultural amnesia, where you treat every single crisis like the world just spontaneously regenerated this morning.
Right, a war breaks out and the news just says, look at these explosions right now. It rarely takes the time to say, by the way, here is the 70-year history of border disputes that led to this exact moment.
And a society that cannot remember what it learned yesterday cannot evolve. We have unlimited access to all the knowledge in human history, Yet we are suffering from declining collective understanding.
People are hyper-informed, but they are completely uneducated. They know the name of the scandal, but they don't understand the underlying systemic failure.
So we have to abolish the divorce.
Yeah.
We had to merge news and education. There was no graduation ceremony for reality.
I love that phrase. No graduation ceremony for reality.
But practically speaking, I have to be the skeptic here for a minute.
Go for it.
How on earth do you actually do that? News moves at the speed of light. An earthquake happens, a bank collapses, you need to know immediately.
True.
Education, on the other hand, is notoriously slow. It takes a professor 6 months to write a textbook chapter. How do you fuse a high-speed warning system with a slow-speed educational curriculum into a single product?
You do it through architecture. The
Right.
sources propose a fascinating, highly practical solution called the multi-level news concept.
Okay, multi-level news. Walk me through it.
The core premise is that you cannot deliver the exact same flat article to an expert and a novice and expect them both to learn anything. The medium must adapt to the competence of the user.
Okay, map that out for me. What does a multi-level news experience actually look like on my screen? Let's use a real-world example. Let's say Silicon Valley Bank collapses.
Yeah.
Massive financial panic.
Great example.
In the old system, I just see 50 chaotic articles screaming about bond yields and liquidity crunches, and I just feel completely stupid.
Exactly. You feel overwhelmed and tune out. But in a multi-level educational news environment, you open the primary story, and the interface itself is layered.
Layered how?
At the very top, there is a clear, bulleted 60-second summary. What happened, why it matters, and what the immediate impact is.
The executive briefing.
Right. But right below that, there is an interactive beginner explainer. If you don't know what a bond yield is, you don't have to leave the page and open a Wikipedia tab. The platform seamlessly offers a quick, structured lesson on how interest rates affect bank deposits.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Once you grasp that, you can slide down to the intermediate deep dive, which analyzes the specific regulatory failures that led to this specific bank's collapse.
And then what's at the bottom?
The expert-level analysis. Raw financial data, regulatory filings, and highly technical commentary for industry professionals.
And maybe alongside it, a historical timeline showing the last 5 major bank runs in history so you can see the pattern.
Exactly. That completely changes the relationship between the reader and the content. It stops being this disposable, anxiety-inducing noise that you scroll past and forget.
It becomes a personalized learning engine. It actively builds my competence.
And from a purely business perspective, this is the masterstroke. People will not pay for disposable, anxiety-inducing headlines, but they will pay for transformation.
What do you mean by transformation?
They will pay for tools that make them smarter, more capable, and more economically secure. The news industry spent 20 years trying to sell access to raw information, but information is free. They should have been selling structured understanding.
I love that. Selling structured understanding. But hold on, if we establish that news is actually the ultimate educational tool for navigating the 21st century, if it is a survival mechanism, then we run face first into a massive moral wall.
The paywall problem again.
Yes, because we go right back to it. If structured understanding is a survival trait, locking it behind a $30 a month subscription isn't just a bad business model. It's actively dangerous for the stability of civilization.
Which introduces the next big concept from the text. Permissionless news.
Let's talk about permissionless news.
Yeah.
Because this part of the framework is incredibly ambitious.
The original utopian promise of the internet was that if you could find a connection, you could access the entirety of human knowledge.
Right. The great equalizer.
But instead of honoring that, the news industry installed financial toll booths at every single exit. High-quality news is currently gated by geography, by personal wealth, and by language.
The language barrier really blew my mind when I read it. The essays point out that language is the single largest paywall on Earth.
It absolutely is. Think about it. The highest tier of investigative journalism, financial analysis, and technological reporting is overwhelmingly produced and published in English.
Which means billions of people around the globe are informationally isolated.
Completely isolated. They are either relying on slow, rudimentary translations, or they are just completely locked out of the global narrative, forced to rely on whatever state-sponsored media or local rumors are available to them.
The premise of permissionless news is radical. It argues that a farmer in Nigeria, a high school student in Nepal, and an investment banker in Manhattan should all have the exact same frictionless access to top-tier, verified, multi-perspective journalism.
Geography and wealth should not determine your access to reality.
It is a moral requirement for global stability. Wars, extremism, and political radicalization thrive in darkness and one-sided, isolated narratives.
If everyone on Earth has access to the same baseline of balanced, highly contextualized reporting, it creates a shared reality across borders.
As the text brilliantly states, when truth becomes widely and frictionlessly accessible, lies become significantly more expensive to maintain.
That's the quote. It's so powerful.
I completely agree with the philosophy. It sounded beautiful. But I have to ask the ultimate cynical question that every single person listening is screaming right now.
Let's hear it.
Who pays for it?
Ah, yes, the trillion-dollar question.
Seriously. We just established that the water treatment plant costs millions to run. We established that the ad tech model is a toxic casino that ruins the product. We established that paywalls are exclusionary and mathematically flawed.
All true.
If you tear down the paywalls and give this multi-layered, translated premium educational news away for free to billions of people, where does the money actually come from?
It requires a total paradigm shift. We have to move out of the attention economy and build the intelligence economy. The future of funding journalism is not the old newspaper model. It is the Amazon model.
The Amazon model.
Okay, we have to introduce commerce-native news.
Okay, slow down. The Amazon model, commerce native. I need you to explain the mechanics of this very carefully, because the moment you say commerce and news in the same sentence, my alarm bells go off.
As they should.
Are you just talking about disguised sponsored content? Are we turning the news into an infomercial? Because if a journalist is writing about climate change and their underlying goal is to sell me a solar panel, their journalistic integrity is compromised.
That is the exact right skepticism to have, and it's why the mechanism must be perfectly understood. We are not talking about journalists becoming salespeople.
Sure.
We are talking about fundamentally changing the platform layer of how value is exchanged. Let's compare the old way with the new way. The old advertising model is based on persuasion and interruption.
Right.
You are reading a dense, serious article about climate change policy, and the ad server interrupts you to shove an autoplay video of a mattress in your face. It is high friction. It tries to persuade you to buy something you weren't thinking about at all.
Right, it's somebody shouting at me when I'm trying to study.
Exactly. Commerce native, on the other hand, is based on facilitation. When you consume news, you aren't just passively absorbing facts, you are actively forming decisions about your life.
Give me an example.
You read about inflation, you start thinking about your savings account, you read about a new health study on sleep, you start thinking about your habits.
The news is the catalyst for action.
Yes. So, in a commerce-native ecosystem, the journalism remains completely independent and walled off from the business side. The reporter just reports the facts.
Okay.
But the platform surrounding the article acts as a facilitator. If you are reading that deep dive on renewable energy, the platform doesn't blast you with a mattress pop-up. Instead, it seamlessly, contextually offers you vetted, high-quality tools to act on what you just learned.
So, like, it might offer a link to a marketplace of verified solar installers in your zip code.
Or a premium online course on green technology investments.
Okay, so the platform isn't tracking my behavior across the web to stalk me. It's just looking at the context of the page I'm already on.
Exactly. It's contextual first-party commerce. It's the difference between a telemarketer calling you during dinner to sell you knives and a trusted friend who knows you're taking a cooking class saying, hey, here's a highly rated knife you might want to look at.
It provides value, not friction.
The news facilitates an economic outcome, and the platform takes a frictionless cut of that transaction.
That makes a lot of sense. If I trust the platform because it isn't abusing my attention with autoplay videos, I'm actually much more likely to use their recommended tools. It aligns the incentives.
Perfectly aligned.
But does that really generate enough revenue to run global foreign bureaus? I mean, that sounds nice, but is it enough money?
It does when you layer it on top of a freemium ecosystem operating at a global scale. Remember, the internet gives you billions of potential users. You do not need everyone to pull out a credit card. You operate on the 99% Vita's 1% rule.
Break that down. The 99% of your global audience accesses the core high-quality journalism completely for free.
Okay, so that fulfills the moral mandate of permissionless news.
Right. It generates massive societal trust, huge network effects, and crucially, behavioral data.
We'll come back to the data in a second. What about the 1%? The remaining 1%, the power users, the corporations, the professionals, the academics, they pay a premium subscription. But they aren't paying just to read articles.
What are they paying for?
They're paying to access advanced analytical tools, API integrations, professional certifications, and deeper educational layers built on top of the news platform. The 1% subsidizes the 99%.
Okay, I want to pause and go back to something you just said, behavioral data. Because the essays introduce this concept of the data paradox, and we have all been beaten over the head with the old Silicon Valley adage.
If you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Exactly. It's one of the catchiest phrases in tech. But the essays say it's fundamentally incomplete.
It is incomplete, and it frames the internet in a purely predatory way. It assumes the relationship is always extractive, the platform steals your data, and you get nothing but a free app in return.
Right.
But in a healthy, transparent system, the free user isn't a product. The free user is a participant.
So free users are paying, they're just paying with intelligence instead of cash.
Yes. And the critical distinction is what the platform does with that intelligence. In the toxic ad tech economy, they take your data, build a surveillance profile on you, and use it to manipulate you into clicking more ads. It's extractive.
But in the intelligence economy.
In the intelligence economy, data is co-created to enhance the system for everyone.
Give me an example of how that works without being creepy. Because people are very sensitive to data collection.
Understandably so. Let's go back to our multi-level news example, the Silicon Valley Bank collapse.
Okay.
Millions of people are reading that story. The system, using strict anonymization, meaning it doesn't know your name or email, it just tracks aggregate behavior, notices that 40% of readers are getting stuck on the intermediate deep dive section about liquidity ratios, and they were dropping off the page.
Oh, wow. It identifies a gap in the curriculum.
Exactly. The system learns where the public is confused. The editors can then go in and refine that specific educational layer.
They can add a better chart or a simpler analogy to explain the math.
Yes. The user's interaction data actively improves the journalism and the educational structure for the next million people who read it. It is a feedback loop of competence, rather than a feedback loop of addiction.
But that absolutely requires trust. If I don't trust the platform, I'm opting out of all tracking immediately. I'm turning off cookies, I'm using a VPN.
Which is why trust is the ultimate economic multiplier in this new model. If you respect the user's intelligence, if you protect their privacy, and if you actually make them smarter, they will engage more.
The system gets smarter, the commerce layer becomes more useful, and the monetization compounds naturally. It aligns the financial incentives of the newsroom with the intellectual growth of the audience.
That's the holy grail.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. We have the economic model, commerce native facilitation, and a global freemium structure.
Right.
We have the philosophical model, breaking the divorce between news and education and providing permissionless access to the globe.
Right.
Now, let's talk about the physical institution. How does the architecture of the newsroom itself need to change to actually build this? Because the 1995 factor we talked about earlier isn't going to pull this off.
No, it won't. The fundamental pivot is that the newsroom must stop managing a scarcity of information and start managing a scarcity of clarity.
A scarcity of clarity.
A modern media organization cannot just be a publisher that throws articles over a wall and hopes people read them. It must become an understanding machine.
An understanding machine. I love that phrasing. What are the core specs of that machine? How does it actually operate day to day?
First, it must be multi-format by default.
Meaning?
We live in a highly visual, multimodal world. A newsroom that treats text as the only serious medium and treats video or interactive data as an afterthought is like a 1930s newspaper refusing to print photographs because they think text is more pure.
Right. It must integrate video, audio, text, and data visualization seamlessly. What's next?
Second, it must be global by default, transcending linguistic borders through advanced translation architecture. And third, and most critically, it must be multi-viewpoint by design.
Let me stop you there, because multi-viewpoint usually just means a cable news panel where you hire one far-left pundit and one far-right pundit. You let them scream at each other for 10 minutes and you call it balanced. That doesn't create understanding, it just creates theater.
Right, that's performative friction, it's useless.
Yeah.
A true understanding machine engineers multi-perspective synthesis directly into the reporting process.
What does that look like?
It means explicitly mapping out competing interpretations of a complex event. It requires transparent assumptions, and it demands a rigid, uncompromising separation between verifiable facts and analytical opinion.
One of the most interesting structural changes the text suggested was explicit uncertainty labeling. What does that actually look like in practice? Because I've never seen a news site do that.
Imagine opening an article about a rapidly unfolding crisis, say, a new viral outbreak or a sudden geopolitical conflict. In the legacy model, the reporter is pressured to sound omniscient, to sound like they know everything, even when they don't.
Which usually leads to them publishing something they have to retract later.
Exactly. In the new model, the very top of the article features a prominent box that says, "Here are the 3 things we have verified as absolute fact. Here are the 4 things that are currently being claimed but remain unverified. And here are the 2 critical questions we do not have the answers to yet, but our team is actively investigating."
That is so refreshing. It treats me like an adult.
It does.
It says, we are the experts, but we are also human, and the data is incomplete right now. Ironically, admitting what you don't know builds far more trust than pretending you have all the answers.
It engineers humility into the product. It transforms the newsroom from a walled-off priesthood into a transparent intelligence network.
A transparent intelligence network.
Yes. A modern newsroom synthesizes signals from citizens on the ground, academic experts, open-source data communities, and AI analysis. It curates the best bricks to build the most structurally sound house.
And this demands a massive cultural shift from journalists themselves, doesn't it?
Oh, huge. The text has a blunt reminder for the industry. Nostalgia is not a strategy.
Oof. Nostalgia is not a strategy.
We can look back fondly at the era of the printed morning paper, the ink on your fingers, the romance of the 20th century newsroom with the typewriters clacking. But the death of that industrial model is not a tragedy.
It's a necessary, painful transition.
Exactly. The era of the printing press monopoly is over. The broadcast era is fading. The era of infinite abundance is here, and we need institutions built for abundance.
I want everyone listening to do a quick audit of their own life right now. Think about your daily feed, the apps you open, the newsletters you subscribe to, the podcasts you listen to.
It's a good exercise.
As you scroll through it today, ask yourself, how much of this is actually building my competence? How much of this is making me a sharper, more capable, more prepared human being for whatever tomorrow brings?
And how much of it is just mental clutter?
Exactly. How much is just manufactured outrage designed to keep me trapped in a casino hallway? In an age where raw facts are infinite and free, structured understanding is the most valuable commodity on Earth.
If we summarize the entire journey of these Netizen essays, it really comes down to a clear fork in the road. News is currently dying because it is desperately clinging to outdated models of scarcity.
Right. It is relying on ad tech that destroys the user experience and paywalls that exclude the masses.
To survive and serve society, it must evolve into a commerce-native, permissionless engine of lifelong learning. It has to take the absolute chaos of global reality and structure it into usable, actionable wisdom.
And for everyone listening, for the quintessential learner, this isn't just an abstract philosophical debate. We are living through a period of extreme exponential change.
Unprecedented change.
AI is rewriting the economy, global supply chains are shifting, the climate is forcing massive technological leaps. Your personal ability to continuously upgrade your mental operating system through your daily information feed isn't just about sounding smart at a dinner party anymore.
No, it is a vital survival trait.
In the 21st century, ignorance is no longer just a personal failing. It is a profound, systemic vulnerability.
The infrastructure that feeds our minds must evolve. If it doesn't, we will be trapped in a paradox where we consume more and more information every single day while understanding less and less of the reality around us.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over.
Oh, let's hear it.
We've talked extensively about transforming news into personalized, multi-layered learning paths, right? We've talked about the newsroom synthesizing this vast ocean of data. But let's extrapolate this into the near future. If the ultimate goal is a perfectly tailored, real-time curriculum based on global events, what happens when we inevitably give advanced AI agents the keys to not just translate the news, but to actively curate and construct these personalized curriculums for us in real time?
Wow.
Right. If an AI knows exactly what you understand, where your blind spots are, and how you learn best, will we even need human editors to build the architecture anymore? Or will AI become the ultimate, perfectly customized understanding machine?
That is the absolute next frontier of this crisis. When you turn on the tap tomorrow, who or what is actually purifying the water, and what parameters are they using to define purity?
Exactly. The pipes are fundamentally changing, but the human thirst for truth and meaning is more intense than it has ever been. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the systems that feed your mind, demand better water, and we will catch you on the next one.